Hello, friends. Today I'm speaking to a best-selling author of the book, The Vitality Code, Neil Cannon. We're going to be speaking about reversing illness by eradicating inflammation. He has a lot up his sleeve. He discussed with me a number of topics next to inflammation. It's going to be an interesting talk, so stay tuned and give it a thumbs up if you enjoy it while you're listening. We might talk about certain verses in the Bible related to health. We'll see, but for sure, it's going to be a talk you would like to stick around for. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Zorina. Good to be here, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
My pleasure, Neil. My pleasure. It was a true coincidence how we met and that we both share an interest for the same topic. We met actually at a business group, so to say, but of course, everybody who is on any social media is also making a living out of that. Otherwise, you can't invest enough time to the proper content, to not only content, but to do the research and to put your life effort into what you're doing, and you're healing people. So tell me a bit about you. Who are you? Where are you based?
Yeah, sure. So Neil Cannon, as you said, I wrote a couple of books recently. The most recent one is The Vitality Code. That was 2023. The subtitle of that, by the way, is 4 Pillars to Reverse Engineer Illness, Heal Inflammation. That's the main subject of my life for the last 9 years. And Ignite Your Life Force Energy, which I thought would be most relevant for your audience. My focus has been inflammation because, like most people who work in holistic health, I come with my own story of healing something, and I had eczema for 30 years. And it wasn't until my dad suffered a stroke where I started to research what led to his stroke, which was chronic inflammation. He was actually told by his sister, who's a naturopathic doctor, my aunt, obviously, that she had told him he had chronic inflammation. He didn't do anything about it. Several years later, he had the stroke, and I thought, hang on, that could have been avoided. And I went on a big research quest into inflammation, and then I realized it was underlying the eczema I'd had for my whole life. So I addressed the inflammation, and then my eczema went away. And then my purpose, I guess, if you will, in holistic health was all around inflammation. So The Vitality Secrets 2015, that's my previous book. And then this one goes much more into what I call it the 4 pillars. So physical, mental, emotional, energetic. We need to address every angle normally. Some people can get amazing results just with diet and exercise, but normally it means going a bit deeper. So yeah, that's been my world, if you will, for the last 9 or 10 years. I'm loving just exploring everything about healing and vitality. I believe the body can heal just about anything, within reason. The science of epigenetics is telling us this, and we can go into that if you want later on. So I find it very empowering, and yeah, I love helping people to heal themselves. And that's where I'm at.
I loved when you said within reason. Actually, it science comes to the truth that was discovered years ago, that it's really within belief, because
right.
Say with epigenetics you can even change genetic disorders.
Right.
Studied by Jose Silva, that I'm fond of.
Yeah. I mean, should we talk about epigenetics just very quickly?
Let's. I would like you to quickly ask you about the eczema. You said you kind of brushed through it as if it was really easy. How easy was it actually to heal your eczema by reducing inflammation?
Yeah.
Do you have to address the 4 pillars, or?
Well, I started off with nutrition, and I got great results with nutrition alone. So I realized that I was living a pretty inflammatory diet, or I was consuming an inflammatory diet, thinking it was healthy. That the biggest challenge I had was getting my head around how what I thought was healthy wasn't. So staple culprits, for example, which are inflammatory for so many people, not 100% of people, but so many people, staple culprits would be gluten and dairy and anything processed, anything GMO, laced in pesticides and herbicides and insecticides and fungicides, all these things that enzymes with vegetables are laced in. We need to just go back to nature. So it's the fundamentals aren't actually difficult, but the challenge is the psychology behind getting my head around understanding what I'd eaten 30 years wasn't actually healthy. So I'd wake up and have a bowl of cereal, wheat, with milk, which is like a bowl of inflammation. So I'd stop doing that. So when I replaced that inflammatory breakfast for something else, that wasn't actually a difficult thing to do. So in short, I went on an anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle change.
And how long did it take?
It actually didn't take very long. I would say within days almost, you can see your skin change. And within weeks, you can heal. I mean, I can heal the eczema very quickly. If it were to ever flare up again now, because I can't say it's cured, that suggests it will never come back again. And it's a word I stay away from. Eczema is a symptom of inflammation. So if for whatever reason my body becomes inflamed again, which is rare, but it can happen, and the eczema can come back, but it can go away very quickly again. So for the most part, I'd say 95%, 98% is gone. And that's the case for any illness, really. And it can heal extremely fast. You can virtually watch your skin heal. I mean, you've probably cut yourself and you see how fast the skin heals a cut. That's how fast eczema can go away once you address the cause. So I would use antibiotics, which harm the gut, which is the very organ you want to heal with inflammation. Steroid creams, which have left pigmentation on my skin. I don't know if you can see that, but I've got pigmentation on my skin where I used to wear steroid creams.
Okay, yeah.
Or rather put steroid creams on me, which appear to work quickly, but then they destroy your skin pigmentation.
Wow.
Which is really bad. And I did that for a very long time. And some people, well, so many people with eczema are still using them, thinking that's the only option. Right. What we need to do is address the gut health and then allow the body to heal from the inside out. So we take the toxins out, which is what inflammation is, basically your body's response to toxins and chronic stress. We take the toxins out, put fuel in, and guess what? The body can heal itself. And then the eczema goes away, or whatever other name of illness one has. If it's a chronic illness, is likely a symptom of chronic inflammation. So the body can heal so fast, skin, anything really.
Yeah. Is there anything else that causes inflammation apart from food?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What would be other causes?
So if we just think of what is inflammation? So inflammation is our immune system responding to some kind of physical threat or a perceived threat in the case of chronic stress. So a physical threat can be anything that goes into the body or anything the body is exposed to, which I think the easiest way to explain it is not in alignment with nature as nature intended. So if we take a step back and think, hang on, what am I doing that's not in alignment with nature? This is the biggest challenge. Like most of the stuff we find on supermarket shelves shouldn't be called food. It's just not food. Processed stuff I'm coming back to food just quickly, but anything processed, man-made, in America, GMOs, really bad news. Fake foods, fried foods, this isn't really food. So we just need to get our head around what isn't really food and just eat as pure as we possibly can. But outside of food, yes, there's environmental toxins. So you might be living near a chemical plant or next to a farm which is spraying pesticides, or there might be mold in the house. That's a huge one. Or you might be suffering from electromagnetic radiation poisoning, believe it or not. This is a huge one in the biohacking health space right now.
Right.
A lot of people are sensitive. In fact, we all are, but we all have a different degree of sensitivity to EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. My cell phone caused my immune system to be compromised in 2017. I couldn't shake off flu-like symptoms for more than a month. And I was doing everything right, thinking anti-inflammatory diet. I was vegetable juicing every day. I was doing yoga. I was living in LA. I was getting plenty of sunlight. I was grounding, super important. We are electrical beings. And that's a big one we can come on to in a minute. So I thought I was doing everything right physically, but I just couldn't shake off this annoying cold. It was flu-like symptoms. So I went to go and see a specialist just south of LA, and he told me very quickly that 3 teeth where I used to hold my phone like this had become depolarized.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at him like he was an alien from outer space. What does that mean? And he said, your teeth act like circuit breakers, and we're wired up like a house with different organs on different electrical circuits. And all of those circuits pass through your teeth. And he said, this is happening to so many people because of the EMFs. All of our cells and teeth are charged, and the polarity flipped like a cell battery have a positive, negative charge. It flipped upside down and dropped the voltage to my immune system. And then the solution was lasers, believe it or not. He shined lasers on I was lying there on a bed with lasers going into my teeth, thinking, what is this guy doing? Anyway, it worked. And then my cold went away. So imagine when I left his office, by the way, he said, don't ever hold your phone next to your face again.
Do you know that it's actually written on the boxes of phones that you're not supposed to have bodily contact, have them on the body? It's actually caution.
Right, exactly. So with that in mind, imagine how many people are wearing Bluetooth headsets right now with no protection between the ear and the brain. That's something, those Bluetooth headsets I have never bought and never will. I don't care how normalized they are. I will never buy them because of my own challenge with EMFs. And if we understand that we are electrical beings and we're electrically charged, you know, when 5G launched, I mean, all these groups, I've actually got my own group on 5G. I thought it was crazy in 2019. I was going very loud on it, thinking this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. They've not done any biological safety testing. All these towers going up and people getting nosebleeds and depression and just talking about all these new symptoms. So we need to be aware of it, not be scared, because the great thing is, even with the incredible advances in technology, because we also need to be mindful of how awesome this technology is, we can also protect ourselves. So I've got protective devices. You can't see it on my laptop, but I've got a protective device on my laptop. I protect the home, I protect my phone, and I've even got electromagnetic radiation protection underwear. I don't normally talk, but
I haven't heard of this before. I mean, I also protect my home. I have a subscription to this FLFE service. Do you know it?
No.
Yeah. So they have it's like quantum protection of your home, and it also protects against
brilliant.
It mitigates the EMF
effects. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good to know that we can protect ourselves. It's just if we don't know about it, we don't know how to protect ourselves. So at least if we go and read about it, we go, oh, that's actually something to pay attention to. So I can still use all my devices and I'm protected. So it is alarming that it's all gone ahead without any biological safety testing. That's a fact. And by the way, that in 2011, EMFs were classified as a possible carcinogen by the WHO. So they know about it, and it even dates back into the 50s. So they've known about the scientific effects, or they've known scientifically about the effects of EMFs on our cells. It actually causes cell and DNA damage. So again, don't want to be scary. That's the last thing I ever want to do. I just think if we can get protection, we can use the technology, enjoy it, stay away from those Bluetooth headsets, never get those, and just be mindful of it. But that, you know, EMFs is one example of a toxin. And when we understand our bodies as electrical, we are 50 to 100 trillion cells. Every one of those cells is electrically charged. We actually have a net negative charge when healthy on every single one of those cells. So the moment we become exposed to these EMFs, it actually creates dissonance. I had on that topic, just quickly, I had a guy called Mark Hines on my podcast a few years ago, just in 2021, I think it was. He is the business partner of Nassim Haramein, who's a phenomenal quantum physicist. Do you know that guy, Nassim
I've heard of
Haramein?
him. Yes, I think
Yeah.
so. Mhm.
So we had a great conversation, and Mark Hines said to me, "Do you know what the greatest threat we have to human health right now is?" And I paused, and he quickly went, "It's EMFs."
Mhm.
And I said, "Of course." And he said, "It creates the reason is it causes dissonance. So we are vibrational beings, as I'm sure all your audience understands if we're talking about manifestation. We're
Mhm.
vibrational beings, and there is a quantum field of well, giant quantum field of all kind of frequencies. And if our cells fall out of harmony with whatever is around us, that's what creates dissonance. So we're not in harmony with the field anymore. And he actually says it's dissonance that creates the illness. So we need to understand what creates dissonance in our bodies, and that's what also creates other challenges. That's going a bit deeper, but it's just something to consider.
Yeah, fantastic. I've considered the energetic part of grounding as well. But what else
Huge.
can you do apart from walking barefoot outside? Lots of people live in apartments. They don't have access to a yard or anywhere they could walk barefoot easily. So I know that there are grounding mats. What else can they use?
Yeah,
Something.
grounding mats for when you're at your computer. You can just there's the original company, by the way, is called Earthing, which you probably know of. There's grounding sheets and pillowcases, so you can actually sleep grounded. Imagine sleeping grounded for 8 hours a night. That's amazing for your sleep, amazing for jet lag. I've just traveled back from Mexico into England, and that's always the first thing I do when I get to England. I actually like doing it barefoot. So I'd go to the beach, walk barefoot, get into the ocean to get the ions as well. The ground is like a sea of negatively charged electrons. And when we connect with it, we absorb these electrons into the body, which is scientifically proven. And it's also scientifically proven to bring inflammation down. So in the Earthing documentary, it's called Earthing Movie, they actually say that when we are connected to the ground, we can't be inflamed. The thing is, most of us are never connected to the ground because we wear plastic and rubber on our feet. So imagine what we can do. We ground it for 8 hours a night with sheets or pillowcases that actually grounds us for the whole night. And we know there's scientific literature saying it brings inflammation down. So in answer to your question, grounding sheets, pillowcases, of course, natural grounding. We can go swimming in natural bodies of water, ocean, lakes, rivers. Anything which is natural will ground us so well. Water is one of the best ways we can ground. So I'm a big fan of cold therapy as well. Like a follow the Wim Hof method, which
Yeah.
is
Oh,
amazing.
really?
So even in England right now, I went swimming the other day. It's absolutely freezing, but something is very, very energizing about being in the ocean. And in Mexico, I'm swimming just about every day in the ocean and kite surfing and just getting the sun. The sun is also incredibly important, despite what the latest media said about it. I don't know if you saw that, but outrageous claims. The sun gives everything life on Earth, and we need to be.
If I may, sorry, finish,
Yeah.
and then I wanted to add something about the sun.
I was just going to say we need to get enough sunlight. We obviously don't burn ourselves. We need to be responsible, but the sun is super important because when it lands on our skin, the skin creates vitamin D, which is a very, very anti-inflammatory hormone. And that's why during COVID, I was like in the sun and swimming in the ocean as much as I possibly could be to maintain a strong immune system.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to add that lots of people have been talking about the particular spectrum of sunlight that you're getting at different types of the day, and especially at sunrise, but like this very minute and even the few seconds, the first 16 seconds when the sun shows up above the horizon, this is when you get a special spectrum that activates this center of your brain that we're talking about, alpha, but it does much more than that. It actually activates, as far as I understand from listening to experts on that, it activates your spiritual essence somehow, your spiritual abilities. Of course, if it activates something in your brain physically, it also activates something on a spiritual level because it's all layers of our existence in the end. But yeah, the first few seconds, the first 16 seconds are very important of when the sun pops up.
Interesting. That's the first time I've heard that. So no wonder I love seeing the sunrise and the sunset.
Yeah.
I look into the sun in sunrise and sunset to actually charge my eyes up. I recently found out I've got low voltage in my eyes using bioresonance therapy. And I thought, at the moment, I've got 20/20 vision. I don't want to lose my eyesight. And I want to make sure I keep the voltage up. And one of the ways I'm doing that is by looking into the sun.
What does that even mean, the voltage of your eyes? I don't understand.
So everything in the body is electrical. So from a body electrical standpoint, we know that a characteristic of any chronic illness is low voltage in an organ.
So it detects it detects the starting of deterioration of your eyes. This is what you mean.
Yes. So bioresonance can actually detect where there's low voltage. So the voltage drops before the symptom is made manifest, if you will.
Yeah.
So, and it's also going even bigger. It's actually, they can detect imbalances in the energy field before it's in the physical body.
Yes. So, they can detect, for example, I know this for the flu, for example, is visible in the energy body 3 days before you actually get the flu, even if you think you've gotten infected the same day, but your energy level drops 3 days before.
Wow, I didn't know that one with the flu. Yes, I've seen studies. Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I mentioned earlier, I went to 2 of his retreats in Cancun, and he talked about how these studies of women with uterine cancer, there were different samples of all these women showing very similar characteristics in their energy fields of those with the uterine cancer, and also with the same pattern in the energy field before it was created in the physical. So if you can detect it in the energy field first, you can also prevent it from happening in the physical. Yeah. I mean, the energy world is just phenomenal, because if we know these things, we can then make sure we don't suffer, or, we can limit our chances of unnecessary suffering. So I hadn't heard that one with the flu. I love that. I'd love to see, do you have documentation on that? I'd love to see it.
I don't keep these things. Maybe I should start keeping what I read, but I usually just pick up the most important thing and then forget about it. But yeah, there was definitely some document that I read about it. Yeah.
Love that. I love that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the other 2 pillars. So we covered the food, the energetics. What are the other 2 pillars of your program?
Yeah, so it's physical, mental, emotional, energetic. If I were to just summarize the physical, because we have talked about it, I'll just summarize it in just 10 seconds. So physical means nutrition, exercise, understanding what toxins are external to the body and internal to the body. There's often toxins in the body that we don't even consider: mercury in the mouth, infected root canals, parasites, could be candida infections, anything like that, which can create inflammation. So we just need to figure out what is causing the inflammation. And thanks to brilliant technologies like bioresonance, it helps to take away the guesswork of what is creating the inflammation in the body. But first and foremost, we need to test for inflammation, see what our levels are, and then we can go and reverse engineer where the inflammation cause is coming from. Diet, of course, is one piece, and many can get a result with diet, but we need to go a bit deeper normally. So that's the physical.
When you say test, you mean blood work?
Blood work, and also gut microbiome testing. You can get your gut microbiome tested. You can send off a stool sample to these various companies, and they can analyze the stool sample and actually test your gut biome. By the way, if you do that, get the kit first. Don't just send the stool sample. There's a company called Viome that does that, and there's a few others as well. So if we test, then we can get a baseline. And most people aren't even testing for the one thing that creates all chronic illness, which is chronic inflammation. So one of those tests is high sensitivity C-reactive protein. And there's other ones like homocysteine as well, and TNF alpha. But the main one I lead with is high sensitivity C-reactive protein. And by the way, man or woman, if we have inflammation, that affects our hormones. So I work with many men. It's been the majority of my clientele, although recently it's been more women, which is interesting. What I was going to say about men is if you have low testosterone and you have inflammation, you can't have high testosterone and be inflamed. It's impossible. So there's an inverse relationship. So bring down inflammation, testosterone naturally goes up. A lot of guys just want to go and grab the testosterone replacement therapy or put the cream on or whatever. If we don't address why the body's not producing the testosterone, it's missing the point. That's the case for any illness, really. Bringing the inflammation down, testosterone naturally goes up. So I've helped so many men increase testosterone naturally by addressing inflammation. Same with women. It can actually cause hormonal imbalances. So even fertility. So I'll never forget going to a book writing workshop back in 2016, I believe it was. And I mentioned that my subject's all inflammation. And then this woman came up to me and she said, that's the main subject when I work with fertility. She'll say, all these people, all these couples go for IVF with a degree of success of around 23, 24%, I think. She said, I have around 80, 85% success with couples because we address what's causing the infertility, inflammation, and then what's causing it underneath that. So it's such an important topic, but most people don't even go there. And there's a reason which we don't need to go into. But let's just say if we can take our health into our own hands and understand we have the power to test for these things, and we have the brains and consciousness to go, okay, if my body's out of balance, why is it out of balance? And let's figure it out. So
may I ask you something that usually when we talk about these four bodies, and I've heard this before, and of course I understand the relationship between the four, but when we talk about the emotions, the emotional state, and some say it's the cause of every disease in the body, including Louise Hay, clearly we see that it's not the only cause. I mean, there are environmental and other causes. But the emotional is affected along with the environmental causes, as it's one system, right? So
yes.
When we say the testosterone can be addressed by reducing inflammation, the testosterone can also be addressed through the emotional body, because maybe due to some emotions, the testosterone has gone down. Do you ever take this angle from the emotional side?
Absolutely. Yeah, great question. What a great segue into the emotional pillar. And then we could talk about the mental. So the emotional pillar, I think most people can understand. It's often spoken about 90% of illness is down to chronic
Neil,
stress.
would you please repeat, because the connection broke a little bit.
Oh, okay. So it's often spoken about how 90% of illness is down to chronic stress. And what is chronic stress? It is our response to our environment. It's not the actual events themselves. It's how we respond. So what's happening really is there's unresolved trauma, which is causing us to be triggered when we're in a traffic jam. It's not the parked cars that cause stress. It's our response to the parked cars or stationary cars. I always use that example because I think most people can relate. Two people can respond very differently to a traffic jam. One can remain calm, and one can be irate and cause a road rage. It's a response. It's our perception, ultimately, which causes the stress in the body. So in terms of emotions, I use a process called the emotion code. This is 60 emotions, trapped emotions, cause imbalance in the body. And one of my favorite sayings around this topic is the organs weep the tears the eyes refuse to shed. So if we don't let that emotion
this
out,
is so deep.
It's huge.
It's so true. Yeah.
The organs weep the tears the eyes refuse to shed. That's William Osler, the father of modern medicine. So imagine, by the way, I went to the Truth About Cancer Live Symposium in 2016. I went into a deep cancer research quest in 2015 because I lost 3 friends to cancer unnecessarily, and I started researching it, and I found it's completely not what we're told it is in the mainstream. And one of the talks was on emotions leading to cancer. And at the time, I just couldn't compute how emotions can create a physical illness. I wasn't at the right frequency to hear it. And it wasn't until a few years later, when I was really going down the emotional quest, if you will, to figure out what that was all about, I discovered Dr. Bradley Nelson, who wrote the Emotion Code, and there's other authors as well, but I love to give credit where it's due. And he explained emotions as electromagnetic bundles of energy. So it's stored as bundles of energy. They have an energetic mass, like it's an actual mass of energy. And understanding the body electric, I talked a little bit about how I discovered the body electric, that whole thing with the EMFs that caused me to go and research or inspired me to go and research the body electric. So connecting emotions, trapped emotions with the body electric is where the penny dropped for me. So if emotions are electromagnetic bundles of energy, whenever we have an event in our lives, and it could be as small as an argument with a sibling when you're 5 years old or 10 years old, or a parent or whatever, or something that happened in school, and it just jolted us. It's just like, it kind of throws us off and it takes us out of alignment. That can leave an energetic imprint. Now, it might be much worse, of course, and some people have been through tremendous trauma, which also leaves an energetic imprint. So the beauty about this process is we can actually release the energy without talking about the event. Talk therapy can actually make it worse, believe it or not. Obviously, it has its place, but it can make it worse because of a term in neuroscience that says nerve cells that fire together wire together, or neurons that fire together wire together. You probably heard that one. So the more energy we give to a trauma, the more that becomes more of a thing. We give all this energy we talk about something and talk about something and talk about, that energy expands, it doesn't contract. So what I like to do, and that makes it worse. So what I like to do is help people release the energy without talking about the event. And they don't have to even talk, they don't have to go there. And that's somatic release. And my main method is the emotion code. So we can actually use kinesiology to find out the names of the emotions, where they were stored. This is very similar to Louise Hay as well. So for example, anger is often stored in the liver, and grief in the lungs. And I've got guilt in the liver, or it could be rejection in the lung or colon, or it could be despair or disgust in the spleen or stomach. And I've got a whole chart here. So if we can go and find out what the names of the emotions are, where they were stored, if we need to find out when they were stored, we can do that as well. And then we can just go and release it very, very quickly in seconds. And then we can test the body again to see if it was released.
You do this in person or also online?
Or remote.
Yeah.
So which is amazing as well, because it's energy, we can do it all remotely. Mm-hmm. It's one of the greatest gifts, Dr. Brandy Nelson. It's so good, because most people won't even go here when they have an illness. They won't go there because we need to, but like me, I wasn't ready for it in 2016. I just couldn't compute how an emotion could lead to a physical illness. I just wasn't ready. But if we can get our head around that, if we can get our head around the fact that an emotion is a trapped bundle of energy, which we can then release, which drops the voltage. That's what I should have said as well. What emotions do from a body electric standpoint is they drop the voltage in your circuitry. So it drops the voltage in an organ, which then creates the illness. So if we can go and test for these emotions, we let the emotions out, and then that's when the magic happens. And it's sometimes when we release emotions from, say, a shoulder pain or a knee pain, or because we can do this with pain as well. A lot of people have joint pains and hip pain, lower back pain, migraines. You can go ahead and release the emotions, and the effect can be near on immediate. Mm. And with other things, it takes a bit of time for the body to adjust once the energy is released. So it's an amazing process. Mm-hmm. And there's many ways of doing this, of course. There's trauma release exercises when you get your legs to vibrate and release all the energy from the psoas muscles where we store the trapped energy. And then there's plant medicines and like ayahuasca and psilocybin that I'm a huge fan of. And then breath work, also a huge fan of. I guide breath work every morning. So there's many ways to do it. I just think one of these ways is the emotion code. And if we can connect trapped energy with a drop in voltage, which is why we have illness, everything kind of makes sense. By the way, I used to be an electrician. So when I discovered all this, it's like, now I'm getting it all.
It's funny because Jose Silva also used to work with electric circuits. That's how he discovered the Silva method.
Oh, no way.
He was a radio repair trained person at the invention of the radios at that time. Yeah.
I didn't know that. And do you know who else was working in cable? Is the grounding guy. Clint Ober used to work for a cable organization. Ah. And one day he was just observing all these kids playing soccer, or football, as we say in England. And they were all wearing rubber on their feet. And he was thinking, hang on, we ground houses because of safety. There's a reason we're grounding houses and buildings. We need to be grounded because we are also electrical beings. We're not connected to the ground. Hang on, what's going on here? And then he started investigating. And then he wasn't getting scientific backing for many, many years, but he kept going. And finally, it's in scientific literature how we need to be connected to the ground. So it's interesting I'm just making the connection. Lots of people have these aha moments who work
talking about shoes, though, grounding shoe, because there are not a lot of grounding shoe producers. And back in the day, all shoes were made of leather or or hay, like espadrilles or something like that. So either of the two, all conductive materials.
You're right, there's not many. I have actually found some examples of grounding shoes back in, like way back when, like 100 years ago or something. And they had these pins, so you can see the pin heads. They got many, many pin heads in the sole of the leather sole. So and then that would be somehow connected to your feet.
Now they produce them with something like a copper coin that is pierced through the sole, and then it's layered with they call it a silver net or something like that, silver grid on top where the foot is stepping, and then it goes down through this copper coin to the ground. I haven't tried them. This is what I know.
You know, I don't have them either, and I wear bare feet. I go bare feet whenever I can in Mexico because I'm so grateful to be able to be there, but it's basically desert land next to the ocean, and I'm just barefoot as much as I possibly can be. But yeah, I'm thinking about people who are in London or in most places in the world where we don't think about this. We need to figure out a way of getting grounded because it's where we get most of our healing energy from, the ground and the sun. And, you know, nature provides the answers. We just need to tap into nature again. If I were to summarize everything I do with my clients, it's getting them back into alignment with nature, figuring out where we've drifted from nature. You know, food's got a huge part to play with that. If it's fake, it's not. If it's man-made, it's not as nature intended, or altered. And what else is not in alignment with nature? And once we get back into alignment with nature, ground, sunlight, we move our bodies. Like if we're not active, we're depriving our bodies of our number one cell fuel, which is oxygen. And so many people are sedentary in front of their computers all day long, and they move very infrequently. We talk about moving for 30 minutes a day. That's an absolute minimum. We need to be active. Our bodies are designed to move. And if we don't move, we don't detoxify because the lymphatic system, which is one of the main waste disposal parts of the immune system, it requires for the body to move. And if we don't move, we're missing out on a major part of detoxification. So a lot of people have got used to not moving, and we must move. We can't outsource moving. So think of us as primal. We would be moving a lot and we need to get our heart rate up. We need to sweat. We need to stress ourselves, you know, in a good way, use our muscles, because when we use our muscles, we're also generating electricity. Our muscles are like battery packs. And when we move our muscles, that mechanical stress on the muscles creates electricity. We actually emit electrons. So that's why we feel energized after a workout, unless we do, you know, hours and hours of endurance, which can actually deplete our energy. But if we do, I love doing body weight exercises and high intensity and, you know, 20 to 30 minute workouts. I feel energized afterwards. Can you relate to this? Feeling energized after a workout?
I unfortunately don't exercise regularly, and I've switched between different types. I used to do yoga for a long time. Then I was doing Tai Chi for the past few months. I've done a lot of different things, and I switch between activities. What I do love is walking. I need to walk.
Yeah, totally. And that's perfect. You know, that's an amazing form of exercise. We can be walking much more. Wired for convenience. I have this interview in my podcast with Daryl Edwards, who's a paleo FX speaker. Anyway, he talks about movement medicine and how we are wired for convenience. So we'll go into a gym and take the escalator, for example,
Right.
or we'll take the escalator or the elevator or the lift or whichever country you're in, instead of walking up a flight of stairs. We need to just be using stairs as much as we can instead of taking the convenient route to get our bodies activated.
Mm-hmm.
In the underground, in London, I'm always taking the stairs. Or if I'm on the escalator, I'm always going up the stairs on the escalator. I can't just sit there and be exported. I just find that really difficult. Anyway, we need to move, basically.
Uh-huh.
And the point of all of that was just getting back to how, as nature intended, the body's designed to move, and yoga is phenomenal. Have you ever been to a bodyworks museum?
No, I don't even know what it is.
They preserve dead people. So you can see all the muscle formation, all the ligaments, all the tendons, all the tissue, all the organs. You can see everything inside this preserved, whatever they use to preserve the bodies. And I'll never
I've seen
forget.
this with animals, but not with people.
Yeah, they do it with humans. It's called Bodyworks Museum. I've been to
Okay.
one in LA and also Berlin, and it's really amazing. They were showing a difference between someone who's done yoga their whole lives compared with someone who hasn't. And when we start doing yoga, we realize we're using these muscle groups that we rarely use unless we do yoga. And a general rule of life or universe is if we don't use something, it weakens and then eventually dies. That's what happens with our muscles if we don't use them. So, this is why you can get to 30 or 40 years old, and because you're sat in front of a computer for 8 hours a day, you turn around and pick up a pencil and you pull a back muscle, or your vertebrae pops out. We need to move, and we can't outsource that. So let's find a way of enjoying the movement, whether it's yoga or walking or animal moves is something I've recently got into which is amazing. And yeah, if we can find a way to enjoy moving, it's going to be so good for longevity, for vitality.
It's interesting that martial arts and all the Eastern sports and even yoga are based on animal moves, animal postures.
So true. So true. And I can tell you maybe on another podcast why I've started to do animal moves. But it's
okay. I would love to repeat that because we have so many interesting topics to talk about.
Yeah. Let's just, you know what, with your audience, they'd probably be open to this. You're familiar with channeling, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So understanding that we can become the energy of another consciousness.
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That started to happen with me recently with plant medicines.
Okay.
Where my body is another form of energy, which is moving in ways that I have never moved as Neil ever before. This started.
You started moving like what? This is interesting.
like animals.
Uh-huh.
A particular type of animal.
Yeah.
I haven't gone, by the way, I've not gone public on this yet. So this is the first time I've spoken about this. I've spoken about it in my smaller groups and my breathing groups and people who are at that level to hear it. But I'm just thinking your audience is probably fine for this.
But Neil, I'd love to see this in action and not just speaking about it.
I've got video. I've got video clippage. So a shaman said to me in England in about 2018, she did this without any plant medicine or anything, because some of this is with plant medicine. And she just said to me, she told me that a shaman was my medicine man guide. Sorry, she told me that my guide was a medicine man.
Okay.
From like indigenous cultures and indigenous culture. And she said, look into this thing. And I didn't. And then in November, it started to happen. But my body started to be used in ways that I have never used it before. And it was almost like I was doing martial arts training and I'm just witnessing my body move around. I was dancing in ways I've never danced before. In an ayahuasca ceremony, I was playing a drum and I was playing. I don't play the drums, and I picked up a musical instrument and I started playing with the shaman. I was literally just watching my body do things that I've never done as me. Yeah. So
I've observed a similar thing during a rebirthing session, and a girl that has never done yoga in her life started doing very complex asanas and like shaking and like really doing the advanced stuff.
yes, I can relate to that as well. Yeah. Yes, it's really remarkable. But I've become very, very physical, and it's like my body is taken over. I can stop it at any point, but I don't want to because it feels so good. It's the most beautiful, incredible feeling I've ever had in my life. In fact, I'd say.
Oh wow.
When it was first happening in November, literally just November just gone, I thought my life would never be the same again because of what was happening. I thought I was not human anymore.
But has it led to any realizations about you, or how does it help your human, this experience?
Well, in full transparency, I'm still integrating. What I am noticing is that because it's a frequency and it's happened every time I've done plant medicine since, and I would like to learn how to do this without the medicine. Everything's a frequency. So if I can tune into that frequency without the medicine, that's what I'd love to do. I'm understanding that my body is much more agile, and I'm just noticing even just the way I'm moving around, and I'm wanting to be in nature more. I've noticed I have literally felt the connection with my mycelium network as I've laid on the ground, and I've felt the electricity come into my body as I was lying under a bush for like an hour.
What network? Is this the energy of the earth?
Mycelium.
I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. So mycelium. Have you seen the documentary Fantastic Fungi?
No.
I posted on it on literally yesterday because I watched it with my mum on the weekend, and it's a phenomenal documentary. It's on Netflix, and there's evidence of more than a million different types of different mushrooms, and so many species that have all these different purposes. They're antiviral, antibacterial, and they can heal anything. They can get rid of oil spillages, and they biodegrade dead matter and stuff. Right. They have such an important function. And below the ground, there's like a network. It's like an internet. It's like an internet of consciousness.
I've heard this about trees.
Right.
It's
exactly.
One organism, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So it's mushrooms and all living things connected, and it's like an electrical network connecting everything that grows. Mm-hmm. And it's a really incredible thing to think about because there's this intelligence that's happening below ground as well as the invisible intelligence, the quantum field. There's an intelligence below the ground connecting everything. And in plant medicine ceremonies, I've actually been connected to the ground, and I've laid my head on the ground and felt it all. And I'm lying there as this different energy, experiencing it all, noticing the electricity, and it's like I was connecting with this intelligence, which I then realized that animals, cats and dogs they must do it all the time because they just do that naturally. So they're connecting with this intelligence below the ground, as well as the energy, the electrical energy being absorbed into their bodies. They're connecting to something. So that came through with me maybe 6 weeks ago as I was lying under this bush.
Actually, some people claim that the healing abilities of the cat, and cats lay on you and heal, it's because if they're able to go out, if they're outdoor cats, they actually ground themselves, and then they bring these negative ions to you and heal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're very intelligent animals. Yeah.
Neil, last question before I let you go for this session,
because
I do want you back for more interesting, inspiring talks on Heal and Learn. But tell me a bit about the works with men you do, and why specifically with men, and what are their particular requirements?
With men, I guess because I'm a guy, I did my target audience has been men for many years, and because I've noticed that so many men their hormones crash after 40, 50 because of inactivity and inflammation. So it just it became something that was almost accidental for me. I was noticing that everyone I was working with, all the guys I was working with, were monitoring their blood work, and testosterone, as the inflammation came down, testosterone went up, and everything else got better. So, of course, I say, of course, when you get rid of inflammation, you get more energy. You tap into this life force energy again that you often don't even realize you had. So that's why the subtitle was going to be Discover the Energy That You Never Knew You Had. So many people crash mid-afternoon or they crash throughout the day because they're inflamed. Brain fog is inflammation of the brain. Most neurodegenerative diseases are chronic inflammation of the brain. Toxicity in the brain. Mm-hmm. So if we can get rid of the inflammation, because there's a very strong link between the gut and the brain, we can clear up a lot of brain challenges as well. So yeah, with men, that just became a natural, I don't like the word target audience, but that's kind of what it is. Area of focus, shall we say. Although recently I've been attracting many more women, and it's interesting because I'm doing more energy healing on my consults with them. Women tend to be more tapped in to their intuition, their heart connection. And they can often feel energetically shifts pretty quickly. And for whatever reason, literally in the last 3 or 4 months, I've been attracting more women as clients. And I think it's because of this heart connection and their intuition. Women are more intuitive. Women are more connected to the divine. And I think that's a really interesting shift that I'm witnessing right now in my practice. Yeah. I'm interested. Why do you ask about men like this? Do you have many men who are in your life who might be, or many men in your life, many male friends?
I have a lot of men. Just kidding. Why? Because I've been interviewing a few people about men's groups and men's circles, and I think there's a war on manhood in a way, and men needs special attention in terms of their way of thinking, the way they perceive themselves as human beings. I think they need to realize their power, but they need special direction, I would say.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting term that you just used. A war on manhood, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such an interesting one. You know, right at the beginning, you mentioned a relation to what was taken out of the Bible in 325 AD. Miracle of Mary Magdalene, Gospel of Thomas, 2 incredible gospels that were taken out of the Bible in 325 AD. If we had all been exposed to them, whether we're religious or not, I'm not religious, by the way, spiritual, no. Anyway, if we had exposure to these gospels, the divine feminine would be very present. The divine feminine has been suppressed in a huge way since 325 AD. I know it was already being suppressed. Women were being suppressed already, but something happened in 325 AD. And one of the reasons why women have been suppressed is the removal of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And because of that, men have also been threatened. Not threatened, that's a strong word, but the balance, the masculine and feminine, has been thrown off.
Right.
So women have become more and more masculine because of this imbalance that's happened. So men are becoming emasculated because more and more women are kind of doing things that men would normally do. We are, we need a healthy balance. So there's reasons why this is happening.
There's cute archetypes of what a woman and what a man is, and they need an adjustment. The prism of what being a woman is. It's not really necessarily about femininity, because a woman also has a healthy balance between the feminine and the masculine. As a man, right?
Exactly.
I actually do want to. I was prepared to talk about the Thomas Code.
Oh, wow.
About the only book that I've read on the Thomas Code.
Wow.
But I do want to leave it for next time, Neil, because this has been already a good length conversation, and to keep the interest of people for our next talk.
Let's do it. And we didn't even explore 2 of the pillars, so we can do that next time.
Yeah. All right. Thanks very much. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it. Hope it was important for people.
Thank you, Zarina. It's been a pleasure talking on your mind.
And guys, please engage in comments and ask Neil. Neil is going to come back, I promise. So ask him questions.